Before getting into the details and insights of it, let us look into a brief history, genesis into the Vedas, because Mantrapushpam is verily part of the Vedas. And unless we have a brief touch, a brief explanation on the Vedas, we may not be able to appreciate the depth of Mantrapushpam itself. So to make a long story short, so the entire universe, entire creation is a reverberation. It is vibration. And vibration means it's a manifest sound energy. And when we say sound energy, we refer to a geometry. So to put an analogy, when we take a stone and throw it upon a water body, we find ripples. Ripples in a shape, in a particular shape, in a particular geometry. For example, it may be circular or cymatic. So the point of contact between the stone and a water body initiates vibration, which is literally sound energy, and that takes up a form. And we know that crude geometry is the underlying structure for the entire universe that we experience, be it the planets which orbit the sun or the moons that orbit the planet. So when the entire creation is in an amalgamation of various vibrations, various frequencies of vibrations, we understand that this gives geometry to the entire cosmos. So the underlying geometry, the underlying skeleton, so as to say, the underlying framework to the entire universe is sound energy. So our ancient sages who were engaged in deep penance were able to download various forms of knowledge or truths from the cosmos. And when they received these truths, they received them in a series of sounds, series of mantras. And reason is due to the explanation that I gave earlier, because the entire creation is simply in the form of vibrations. So as they received this knowledge, they received them in a series of sounds, which they received and envisioned and realized. So these truths which were received in the form of mantras, which the rishis envisioned, were then taught, and this is what formed an ocean of the Vedas. So there were many rishis who downloaded various parts of the Vedas that we have today, and they were all received directly from the cosmos. So these rishis, these advanced beings, can be equated to radios, modern day radios, where we tune the radio to a particular frequency and we will be able to listen to the particular songs which are played in a particular radio station. So this is why we see that the Vedas are beyond a non-human origin, and they do not have an author. And they hold as the highest authority in our culture as well. And later on, Veda Vyasa, the great sage Veda Vyasa, happened, and he became the editor for the Vedas. And that is how the branching of the Vedas into 4 and many other branches within the 4 big groups themselves happened. So Mantrapushpam happens to be part of the Taitiriya Aranyakam of the Krishna Yajurveda. It occurs in the first chapter, this 22nd Anuvaka. So when we say Aranyaka, it refers to the portion of the Vedas which were originally learned in the forest region, in secretion, in strict discipline. So therefore, we can infer that Mantrapushpam, although commonly heard today, commonly known today, popular today, or contemporary, it is something which belongs to the Aranyakam originally, and perhaps it contains a lot of deep secrets, deep truths that has to be realized through discipline and sheer discipline towards recitation. So, and this is why the way to realize the Vedas is ultimately via recitation, as Swami always emphasizes. This is why we have to pay attention to the pronunciations, swaras, and other grammar rules that can help us to gain full benefits out of the recitation. And the ultimatum of the recitation should be the realization and the attainment of oneness with the mantra. The mantra becomes a living reality in our experience. So that should be strived upon. And that experience which arises can be shared, and we can all enjoy the essence of it. So to give an analogy on why recitation of Vedas is a must, to understand why recitation is the way in which the Vedas were learned, and why this culture is still preserved and is a very huge part of the Sathya Sai organization. We shall look at it with an analogy which I commonly use. So let us say you're crossing the road. Person X is crossing the road from one junction to another. He crosses the road and he is not aware of a fast vehicle that is moving towards him. Okay? So he's moving and there's a vehicle and he's not aware of it. The driver honks at him, whilst applying brake, honking him in order to alert him of the possible danger. So just by that sound of the honk, which touches the person who's walking, which activates his stimulus, massive changes happen to him. He starts getting into fight and flight response. He starts realizing internally. The process does not really happen in an intellectual level. He does not have time to dissect and look into the signs of danger. It is just a reflex, and internally within his body, there is a realization of danger, and his body activates the mechanism for him to get energetic, to get into a fight and flight response so as to safeguard himself. So here we can understand that merely just by the sound, a honking sound, various forms of knowledge is instantly transferred upon the person who crosses the road. Knowledge of danger, knowledge of a possible vehicle, the details of a vehicle, it could be a car, a bike, or a lorry, and the need for him to safeguard himself. And it all happens in a split second. So this is how the Vedas work. They work beyond intellect, beyond the mind, and they work beyond human compression. So that is why they are to be realized, because these are directly the vibrations which comprises very universe itself. To put it short, we can say that it's the very sound form of Godhood, the very sound form of reality, absolute reality, the very sound form of consciousness. So now let us get into Mantrapushpam.